Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait, we're good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Call the Finance Committee meeting to order. It is Wednesday, October 3rd, and we are reviewing the articles primarily this evening. But first, may I ask the clerk of roll call, please?
Present tonight, Chairman Pigeon, Vice Chair Hurd, Clerk Bailey, Stuart Novick, Tricia Rumney, Joan Fonts, Dominic Camarado, and Jerry Stefanski.
Thank
We
you.
have a quorum.
Is there any citizens present for participation? I see none. On the Finance Committee matters, in reviewing and voting on the October town meeting articles, we had asked or inquired at the last meeting to have some more questions relevant to the zoning articles. And Ken has been kind enough to join us and answer those questions. Thank you, Ken.
Good evening.
And so, may I ask those who had inquiries, by all means.
Well, since I know nothing about this, what was the impetus for all these changes?
A couple of things. One is the request of the building commissioner to help him in an enforcement of the bylaws. And secondly, to reduce the number of permit applications before the Board of Appeals.
And so, which of the articles will do that and how will it do that?
The bylaw changes to Article 5 of the zoning bylaw, which I don't have that article number. I think that was that 13? 14.
Yep, 13, 14, and 15.
And
14 is Article 5, and 15 is Article 6.
And that was to change the unregistered motor vehicles, boats, and trailers in the front yard on the premises that were not garaged. A couple of things that were changed in here were to include boats and vessels, watercraft, because that was a problem in a couple of instances around town. I mean, it's hard in a community where you have a lot of boats in the front yard, but we're talking about more than one unregistered and ungaraged vessel in the being stored in the public view.
Hey, Ken, I raised a couple of questions on that. A number of vessels are not registered by law, such as kayak, canoes, small sailing vessels.
Functioning yourself.
Those are typically not registered. And typically, a family with close to the water or uses the water very often has more than one in their yard. The other item is that not garaged at any time unless authorized in writing by the Board of Selectmen. Now, do you anticipate that everybody with 2 kayaks is going to get a letter from the Board of Selectmen saying it's okay to have 2 kayaks and a canoe on your property?
Well, I think it's in the interpretation of the building commissioner, and we use the term vessel rather than watercraft or boat in the definition, meaning a larger sized watercraft that would typically be registered.
You realize that any sailboat that doesn't have an engine in it need not be registered. So it could be a 50-foot sailboat in someone's yard. Doesn't
Would
doesn't
you have more than
motor,
one?
But he may have that and a dinghy also.
That's kind of what I meant. What is the actual definition of vessel? That's maybe the best question here.
Is it in the bylaw? Is vessel described in the bylaw?
No, Merriam-Webster.
the definition of vessel is,
A watercraft.
Is that the
Kayaks,
Kayaks,
the question.
dinghies, small sailboats excluded from that?
Yes, it would be.
For sure.
That's the way the
Doesn't
building
say
commissioner
that, though.
would interpret it.
I'm just concerned that we're trying to clarify the bylaw to make it enforceable and understandable. And we still have several things that are potential areas of question.
I have one thing to add. According to Merriam-Webster, the definition of a vessel is a watercraft bigger than a rowboat.
okay, that helps.
I have a 14-foot kayak.
It's a
I
row, it's a
have
rowboat.
two
Is-
14s and a
I got
19.
14 and 12, so are those vessels?
No, it says row. The
Well,
one
I
that
know
kayak,
There
you
are a
row
lot of
it.
rowboats. that
It's
are 14
longer but
feet
narrower, so I don't know.
long. There are a lot of
Anyway.
rowboats that are bigger than 14 feet.
There are.
I think
You know,
basically what they're
what
trying
this-
to do is like, if it's a real mess, that's basically what you're getting
That's
out
what
of.
it is, when there's a complaint that comes in, I mean, the building commissioner is not gonna go around and try to find problems with people storing their boats in their yards in a coastal community, because there are gonna be too many. What he's gonna be looking for is if there's a complaint, he has the capability of enforcing the requirement to clean it up.
So if you got 3 boats in the yard, they haven't seen water in 20 years, that's basically what he's,
And
Try not
it's
solve.
not a boatyard, and it's not commercial enterprise.
Ellis, can you look up the definition of a vessel by the Coast Guard definition? Since we have Coast Guard all around here.
what he said, Webster.
Yeah, well,
Merriam-Webster.
Oh,
Merriam-Webster.
maybe
Coast Guard.
Could be
Oh,
Wikipedia,
good.
it could be, you know, different pencil.
On outdoor storage, another question that came up the other night, and that is if someone is building a house on a vacant lot in Wareham, has the proper permits and everything else, and has a load of lumber dropped off in front.
Yes, and to we've
535,
revised the definition as a result. So that it reads, "The outdoor storage, which includes storage of construction, manufacturing, service, wholesale equipment, materials, junk, or heavy motorized equipment of any type which is not for sale or rent, and has not been properly authorized by the town, shall be concealed from public view." So authorization by the town would be a building permit that allows for the construction.
all right,
Do we have the final wording on this stuff?
Well, that's totally different than the wording. we
because
received.
that's not what was included in the warrant. That's
No, it
not the
isn't.
way the warrant is described, so you're going to request a change
Yes,
at town meeting.
yes. Going to make a motion to include a revision, if the planning board goes along with it.
There was another revision I was gonna ask about. My front door doesn't face the street. The waterfront house, so the bedrooms are on the street and
Yeah, mine
the
doesn't.
living room and whatnot's overlook the water. So,
It's a different article.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's Article 9, but it says it has to be as close to the front door as Bragsburg or some such thing.
Registry, so it's not.
I might consider that wording. I don't think anyone's gonna give me a ticket for putting it on the street side rather than next to the door, but,
You're talking about the street numbering.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there has to be some allowances for,
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe your phrasing could be changed if you're changing things, but
Mhm.
not everybody's front door faces the street.
right.
Going back to Article 19, Ken, would that be considered a more accurate description of the language or a revision of what you see here. Because what was submitted, obviously, is going to come to the floor, and you're going to have to do an amendment. You have to, now, would it be considered an expansion or a clearer definition?
I think it's a clearer definition. It reduces, it focuses it down to more of what we're trying to regulate.
I would suggest with the new language that you make sure that the town moderator has a copy and have an opportunity to evaluate from her point of view whether or not it's an expansion or a clarification in the writing. Because she's going to be the one that allows it to come forward.
Absolutely, and I think we want to run this by town council as well.
Oh, well, that'd be nifty too.
Ken,
As well as the planning board, I mean, gosh, thanks.
The planning board meets on the 15th this month.
if for whatever reason, under this unregistered vehicle thing, the building commissioner has an unreasonable interpretation, does the homeowner have any recourse?
Yes, they can appeal to the Board of Appeals. That's what the Board of Appeals is there for special permits and for appeals of the decisions of the building commissioner.
Since this is the finance committee, I'm trying to do my write-ups, and my kind of opinion is we should stay out of some of this stuff if it doesn't somehow lower taxes or cause the town an expense. I don't think I see anything here that would lower our tax collections or increase any town expenses. Do you? There's a whole board of zoning people who have looked at this and gone through it. And,
I think probably the biggest impact we'd want to have from these regulations is an improvement in property values.
Yeah, there are houses in my neighborhood. The front yard looks like a,
yeah, there's junk cars, there's junk
yeah, I mean,
boats.
it's just ridiculous.
It
There's
is.
multiple
Yeah.
instances of this sitting out in their front yard.
And that might make the law good, but it doesn't necessarily have a financial impact on the town, which is, I guess, what,
To Ken's point.
well, if all the property values rise together, it's still 2.5, the collections don't change.
If the value of the house is higher than the percent on collections.
Well,
No, because the 2.5 is on the pot, so if your taxes go up, someone else's have to go down outside of the 2.5% mark.
knowing someone would have brought this up, I checked the language in the charter and it says, we review all articles without exception,
Well, it's
irrespective of the
reviewed,
financial, and we're doing that now.
but we don't have to necessarily give it a hearty recommendation.
Correct.
No, we do, well,
In the
that
past-
is the option
In
of
the
the
past,
committee.
what we've written is we agree on this article or disagree on this article, even though it has no financial impact on the town. That's what we've done in the past. We
Yeah.
voted for everything,
Yeah.
whether it's positive or negative.
But the language is specific, we review everything
Right.
as far as the charter is
We have
concerned.
it.
And we have been,
Yes.
and I think it's appropriate we do, we're an agent of town meeting. And we're the only agent of town meeting that examines everything and advises town meeting
Right.
on all the articles. Even Ken struggled to get it right.
Renee, I have another question for Ken.
Yes.
Ken, how does this work with lots that have no house on? If you have a lot that doesn't have a house, do you still have a vehicle on there, one vehicle, or one boat, or does it have to, is those lots considered, it has to have a house on it?
It says any premises, so it doesn't have to have a house on it.
Okay, that was my question. So if you own a building lot, you store your boat there, as long as it's only one, you have no problem.
As long as it meets the requirements.
Yeah, it says one boat, whatever.
One boat,
Registered,
one, yeah, registered.
Just one boat, yeah, okay, that's all. Scott, I have one other question. Are you dealing with 9, like, with the signage? Is that something you're dealing with or no? The numbers on the houses?
Street numbers, no, I did not write that one.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, in the language of that, it says on your front door or nearby, and I thought it was brought up on other meetings too, that not all front doors front on the street. You have a side door, which decides a driveway, so there's not something visible from the street. And it didn't define an exception to that, or that said the number had to be within view of the street. It did go about, if it's set back 500 feet and there's trees, you have to have a pole at the beginning of the street with a number on it. But if you have a house there that sets askew of the parallel to the street, then it doesn't outline where it should or should be within visible, anything of that nature on the article. You did not write it, I know. I'm just saying that it seems to be lacking in the bylaw.
Yeah,
that they
understood.
propose.
Like, for instance, my house, no front door like yours, but I live on the corner. So my address is actually 22 West Boulevard. My door is actually on 8th Street. So if I put the number on the 8th Street by my front door, it's not 22 8th Street, it's 22 West Boulevard. Yet there is no access to my house from West Boulevard.
Do you have any confusion when you go home at night?
I don't. The pizza man does when he comes home.
But I think that bylaw needs a little clarification. Not to say it has to cover everything, but I think perhaps some more generalization in the language would help a good deal, and so that it leaves whomever is making the judgment call has an opportunity to have some flexibility,
Some
as well as
options.
the homeowner.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions, concerns? We've covered the house numbering and the amend Article 5. Any questions on Article 6?
Yeah, could you, again, just
Or
what's the
15?
general reasoning behind doing this? What does it do?
What it does is it allows that certain conditions don't need to have a Board of Appeals special permit or variance for being as of right. What it does is it lays out what it would be, could have, just have a building permit issued for an accessory building or an addition or expansion to an existing development, the existing home. And in doing this, what we do is we're reducing the amount of work that's necessary for the Board of Appeals and the number of applications, and make it easier for homeowners to improve their properties.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding Article 15, which is the amend the zoning bylaw, Article 6? Okay, let's move on to Article 16, which is amend the zoning bylaw, Article 11 regarding signs.
Bobby, you've been a meeting, I'll have to call you back, okay?
There was some discussion in
Yes.
other meetings rather than
Yes.
again to signs, and it's their timeframes. But it was 18 hours, something relevant to that.
Yes, that was brought up at the hearing, that the existing regulation is questionable as to the amount of time that's necessary, that's required to bring a sign down. The sign is not up. It was not the intent of this change to make, of this amendment to make a change in anything but what was identified. But it was pointed out that the paragraph that the amendment is in is potentially problematic.
Or any intent to amend anything on the floor regarding this?
The hearing on this is for, is scheduled for the 15th. So we'll discuss it then with the planning board and make the determination as to whether or not they want to amend it on the floor.
Yeah, I think that some clarification is needed on this, the issue. I'm sure there's a few people rather sensitive about it, and it should be considered. So yeah, planning board, we'll talk it. Any other questions regarding this particular one? On signs? One we haven't touched on, Article 13, is the zoning bylaw, Article 4, for the overlay districts, is one relevant to Tremont Nail. They had back in 2013, I think, produced a book regarding, with a consultant, for 3 different versions of a vision of what they have for that area. And unfortunately, some of their visions are not supported by the zoning. And we've heard a lot about possibility of a cannabis processing building going there. And I think that stimulated a lot of discussion, but it isn't narrowed to that specific item or subject. This will allow them to, for one, even have functions and the like there that may not have been allowed under the current zoning. Am I covering it correctly, Ken?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so they're hoping just to give them more flexibility to accomplish the objectives or the vision that they had. It just coincidentally happens to have someone in the matter of cannabis processing that has taken an interest in it, in one of many, but hopefully they'll retain their vision and not complicate it with this particular item, but that's a personal issue I have, nothing in the bylaw. Any concerns or questions relevant to this?
Approving the bylaw doesn't speak to the cannabis per se, just speaks to it being a light industrial.
No, it actually, because we have cannabis, marijuana as a specific use,
Yeah.
we have to identify it in the list of uses that are allowed within the district as well.
Okay. All right, so it is part of this, not as,
Yes, it's one of the uses listed.
one of the uses listed, it just doesn't fall under light industrial?
That's
No,
right.
No, okay, all right. So approving this article is approving the use of cannabis.
As one of the uses that are allowed.
You can on the floor, though, amend this to exempt those uses. When we did the bylaw regarding the retail operations, it was, the restrictions that we placed in the bylaw were relevant only to retail, if I recall, wasn't it, Ken? Is that correct, Ken? No?
No, it
I got
was,
one shaking the head over here.
it was for all the different types of marijuana, the processing, the cultivation, the sale, and each of those being a different use categorized or listed in the state regulations and law. What we were specific when we were allowed to control was the number of retail businesses,
And where they were located.
storefront businesses, and where they were located.
So the manufacturer or the processing could occur any place within our zoning that it's allowed, correct?
Correct, which is in actually the same districts as the allowed for the retail as well, which is the industrial district, the commercial strip district on the east, and the institutional district in the downtown here.
I haven't seen a printout of where this district, the definition of these districts, or this particular district. How far downtown does it extend?
Only to the southern extent of the southern boundary line of the Tremont Nail.
So we couldn't have a processing plant down near the fire station or anything like that?
No.
It's still downtown.
So, I guess I don't understand, is this specific to marijuana, or did you have a list of uses? Are they generally more, are they more general than this, like light industrial, or do they say you can have this kind of factory, but not that kind of factory?
What we do is we list out health and athletic facilities, apartments, and mixed-use building, conference center, hotel, light manufacturing, which is a use that's defined within the zoning regulations.
Yeah.
Accessory food and beverage, marine connected use, artist studios, brewery and/or distillery. And in addition, we have one marijuana product manufacturing use, which is allowed in accordance with the state regulations, but not including marijuana retail sales, dispensary, or cultivation.
I guess I just wanted to make sure it was broad enough to fit your needs for the future. You're not gonna be back with this in 6 months with another use for the overlay district.
Yeah, I think the list of uses we'll have will probably be negotiated with the developers that come in.
Oh, yeah, they'll want restrictions depending on who it is. I've read
Okay.
some of those leases, the restrictions are crazy.
Yeah, some of the, if we have a master developer come in, they may want to have a different combination of uses, and we'd want to have that as a developer's agreement. It sets up but what we want to do is have enough flexibility within the zoning.
I guess that's my question. Do you have enough flexibility to make sure that you're doing what we need to do here? It sounds like you've got quite a list there, but I can't think of anything that should go on it.
Right, and all the other uses within the Wareham Village 1 district apply as well too.
I have a table which we will reproduce in our book. I'll also ask Kelly if you can ask for just a printout of the defining of the border of that district, just so we clarify it.
Do we expect this one to be a problem?
I'd just like to make sure all the information is out there. If they don't want to read it, they don't have to.
We have a public workshop and community outreach meeting tomorrow night, and we may hear some more.
I assume just the word cannabis riles people up, but I don't know.
That's really questions I
No
have.
problem.
It did, but just to respond, but town meeting voted
I was there.
overwhelmingly in support of if not unanimously, in support of the marijuana bylaw, the way it was written previously.
So you Bertie, does it have any effect on any of those things to do where there's that little people's school there, the school being so close? Does that have any effect on any of these changes?
No, it doesn't. There's enough separation. I talked to the owner of the Little People's College as well too, and they're actually more concerned with the bridge and fixing up the bridge so that they can.
I didn't know, like, if the school was too close, boundary-wise, whether or not the school was too close to have the marijuana. I don't know how the law is written, I haven't read it, whether or not it's too close, too far, you know, like, I don't know.
No, measuring the distance between the buildings is more than 500 feet, which is what the state law requires.
Because I've heard that question on the street a few times, and I don't know if that's gonna be an issue that's gonna be brought up, that people are concerned about, and that issue has been brought to me. A lot of people come to me and ask me some kinds of questions, and that question was brought up a couple times. So I don't know if that's gonna be a problem, you know, that we're gonna hear about on the floor or not, Bertie.
Right. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
You've been at town meetings often enough to know that someone's going to ask a question you don't want to have asked.
That's all I really know about it.
Ken, at your public hearing on the 15th, specifically, are you going to discuss zoning article 4, 5, 6, and 11, which is signs? Are you going to be discussing all of these at your
Yeah.
hearing?
Yes. Well, not at the hearing, but we're going to have the hearing scheduled for the signs. It's a continued hearing for the overlay district. And going to have a discussion item on the previous articles that were before the board in the hearing.
So really, all of the zoning bylaw changes are going to be discussed.
Yes.
15.
And hopefully we have enough time.
What meeting are you having tomorrow night, though?
It's a community outreach meeting for the Organobrands, the marijuana production facility
That's
that's
held, that's gonna be here tomorrow night?
here tomorrow night. And then we're gonna have at the same time a redevelopment authority workshop on the zoning
In the auditorium?
in the auditorium.
Thank you.
Anything else? See, we covered everything, Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you have any other questions, let me know.
See you tomorrow night?
Have the final wording on these things?
I don't have a copy of the note. I'm going to ask Kelly to get to us and send it out.
I guess I was gonna put recommendations on these anyway, so maybe the final wording doesn't matter that much, but it would be nice to write recommendations up on the final wording rather than,
Oh, indeed, yeah. I was not aware, and I don't think Kelly was aware, that they had abridged or changed the wording at all on that issue.
I know that.
and they can just change that during the
The
town
marijuana
meeting.
laws and everything's written.
I have to run an amendment.
And that's cool, it's not like whatever.
And then everybody votes on the amendment.
Yep, and then assuming the moderator allowed. Okay. Have any other questions?
The whole marijuana thing, it has to be solved.
Before we move on, why don't we try some votes on this?
Is that a
On
retail or a
the
processor?
Article 9, the house numbering bylaw,
It's a little factory.
is to vote on that. May I have a positive motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the house numbering bylaw,
Second.
Article 9.
Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 9. 9, we're full house tonight. I didn't realize that. Oh, Glenn showed up, that's right.
Even Dominic was on time.
Even Dominic was
First
first
time
time.
today, first time all year.
I was thinking of the last 4 years.
Spin.
Reliably 5 minutes late.
On Article 13, which is amending Article 4 of the bylaw, which is the overlay district. That would be the Tremont Vale. You have a positive motion?
Move to approve it.
You have a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Just discuss these a little bit,
Certainly,
if you don't mind.
not at all.
On these zoning bylaws, they're still works in progress right now, which bothers me as a member of the Finance Committee voting on them at this point. They haven't had,
What do you mean there's so?
well, according to Ken, they're talking about on several of these, amending them on the town meeting floor. And we're still having hearings on them, which is troubling to me.
I agree, I thought they were done. Okay.
I just would much prefer to have a finished product in front of us.
It's hard to vote on something that isn't etched in stone, that we don't know,
Right.
changes in the air.
Right, that's my concern.
I agree.
Then if I would ask you to withdraw your motion
I
in
withdraw
a
it.
second. And I would suggest recommending that there's insufficient information at the time of our voting, or something to that effect.
I would recommend that for the zoning bylaw changes.
Would you recommend it for all of them, package?
If they can change, yeah, if they're gonna change,
I would
potentially.
Or how would you like?
say 13 and 14.
Mhm.
Ernie, can I ask
Sure.
through you, to Claire, have you heard any of these motions to change, or is that what's in the air, besides what he just said?
It's the first I've heard of it.
First you heard, Ellen, you, first you heard?
No, the Board of Selectmen have not voted on them, and probably won't vote on them until
If they do, probably just before town meeting, because we don't have the final information. So
And like
we
that's,
basically, I'm not sure what the terms are gonna be, but as far as what Kelly would get would be information forthcoming in order to make a decision.
For the record, this is the only one the selectmen have not voted on, the overlay district.
No, I don't think we voted on the.
says you did,
My
but I don't
record
know.
shows-
True.
Yes.
It may have been when I was out, I missed one meeting, that's the way
Yeah,
I.
there's
If
only
it's
four
4-0,
votes,
yes,
yeah.
that would be the evening you were out, perhaps.
Yep.
That would be possible.
I think we should follow David's
I
lead.
would not have voted on the sign by law one, since I
Follow
I
David's.
wrote that one.
I would suggest we include, let's see, it would be 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all zoning bylaw changes.
And 9's considered final? Isn't that a zoning thing?
9 was the numbering bylaw. We could withdraw our recommendation, motion to withdraw.
I don't know, was it final or not?
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't
The
think
numbering?
that really wasn't a change, was it?
I don't think so.
That's not
No.
I asked him for a change, but he didn't agree
Yeah,
to
you,
it.
Right.
Yes, it's not anticipated.
You would
Then,
have, just
why don't we, I would
just
suggest,
a clarification, if your door is in the front or the back of the house, doesn't matter, you have to have a number somewhere on the street, they can see the number.
Well, yeah, I think that's
If you're
the
in a
point of it.
subdivision or anything like that, no matter how you build your house, the number has to be facing the street.
That's not a big deal.
It's a safety issue.
It's just not what it
More
says.
than 5
I would say,
I understand, but I'm just saying, if you, again, if
Right.
your back wall faces the street, you'll have to have a number somewhere.
I know what we're trying to do, it's just not what it says.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
You guys
we
voted
take-
down 17, is there a story there?
Tell me what it is, 'cause I have no clue.
transfer the WPC fee funds for the Warrior. It's a grant that's,
I went to a meeting on 8:30 to the sewer commissioners, and the sewer commissioners hadn't really decided what they wanted to do. There's a grant for about $82,000. The town would be liable for about $600,000 with it, and at that time, there wasn't enough information to go ahead, and I don't know what the sewer commissioners are gonna do. At this point, it's still up in the air, so at that time, we voted no, simply because it could put a excessive liability in the town of Wareham.
I would suggest then on the zoning articles, you say all hearings have not been completed by the time of our going to print.
And
Yeah.
insufficient.
Insufficient
So
information.
there's
There it
insufficient
is.
information.
You want to write
And-
that as as our recommendation, insufficient information?
Yes.
I guess I could read something else there if we change our minds, but
No, I think at this point in time, obviously, we're going to be meeting before town meeting on the Articles 1, 2, and 3. But I think at this point, there's insufficient information. Obviously, they are still in the process of having hearings, and we will be going to print by the
Yeah,
early
as
part of next
the
week.
time of print, insufficient information, and then you can always put in that we're gonna vote at night.
I would ask for a motion in that respect and let our clerk phrase it appropriately.
okay, I still don't think they have a financial impact, so.
Well, they don't have a direct financial impact.
I'm not sure
They
have
won't
any
have a
direct-
direct impact on our tax rate.
No, it's
Well,
accurate, but
it's,
they're talking about fines, and that's,
Right,
there'll be money through fines.
right, but they won't have an impact on our tax rate,
Okay.
number one. And number two, there is insufficient information available right now. And number three, there are ongoing hearings and discussions as to how the final wording is going to be done.
All of them may not be in hearings, but some are, so we're going
Right.
to do a blanket.
Can we give them a schedule next time so they get them done on time?
If they have the schedule, it's pretty well established as to when things are supposed to be ready for
Well, I guess they
the
just
selectmen,
have,
inclusion in the warrant. That's pretty well defined. But I will make a motion that we take no action on these zoning articles, and in particular, Article 13, which is amend zoning bylaw overlay district. 14, zoning bylaw Article 5, supplemental regulations. Article 15, zoning bylaw Article 6, density and dimensional requirements.
Why don't we throw in Article 16?
That's signs.
16
I'm
is just
comfortable
taking the
with
signs
signs.
up and down, that's
So
not.
my,
Are you comfortable with signs, everyone?
I don't know, is it done or not?
Okay,
That was the
let's go
question.
through the ones I
I'm
recommended.
comfortable with all of it.
Okay, I'm saying 13, 14, and 15. We have insufficient information at the present time.
Agreed.
Great.
Just so you understand that the first couple we had there were actually submitted by the Director of Inspection Services in order to be able to implement the existing bylaws that we have and have some teeth, so actually not have to go to court and wait 5 years for an answer. So those were not, done by Canada, those were done by your Director of Inspection Services / Code Enforcement Officer. That's where they were generated from.
Right, I'm not opposed to the intent of them.
No, I just wanted to understand what it is, how.
Yes.
He's slowly trying to go through every section of the zoning bylaws and fix the areas which are gray, which contradict themselves as you go through the information, etc. You're gonna get more of these as it goes along.
No, I think that's good. We had a lot at last town meeting, and we're
Just the beginning.
just the beginning. That's good. We do need to go through these bylaws and make sure that we're consistent and current,
Make sure they're enforceable.
and that they're enforceable. Yes.
And we're finding every day it's critical. However insignificant it is, it rises up to criticality.
Mm-hmm.
I think your sign bylaw, just so you understand, was basically done to stop. We actually have in the sign bylaw, it says you can't put signs on utility poles, they don't hit the trees, you can't put them on bridges. Those pieces are there. But yet the same thing on the sign bylaw, it says you don't have to have a permit by right to put a sign up for like open houses, real estate sales, etc. But it actually still should be in there saying you can't put it in those areas. It's the first part of the sign bylaw, it states that right away. So that was part of the sign bylaw, was to make sure it was clear what was available, what was not available. And that's the major changes. And also, on the political sign, there was a case at the federal level about political signs. And there's very little restriction you can do on a political sign. So on that particular piece, we took a piece out of the political sign requirement that pre-existed and removed it to comply with what the federal government says is now what you can do with camping. The only reason I can explain it to you is because I wrote it.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
on the motion, Article 13, 14, and 15. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And approved, but it isn't approved for
So I'm gonna be, I gotta call you back, okay?
What was that?
approval
No
of the
action?
zoning, but approval of the language that we're going to say that it is insufficient information, and hearings are still in progress relevant to
So
finalizing
wouldn't we
them.
all abstain then?
It's all abstaining.
So wouldn't it be 009?
I agree,
Yes.
009, I agree
So
with
we
you.
want to vote that
Everybody.
way?
Yes,
Everybody agree on that?
Yes. For you?
so understand if you are asked by the FBI or anything of that nature, you are doing this with abstaining, and we all agree. Article 16, amend the zoning bylaw,
Signs. I will
signs.
make a motion to approve Article 16, signs.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any other concerns or questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote 900. And the transfer of the PCF funds,
I don't know anything about it.
I don't either, and Alan has even confused me further.
Again, like I say, that's exactly what was said at the meeting, and none of the sewer commissioners were going to vote for it at that time, they voted off. And they still haven't.
And we haven't
So they
seen
still have
value.
not voted for it.
Yeah,
All right.
trying to do
The
with
selectmen
the,
voted against it, it was a 0-4-0 vote.
beg your pardon?
Right.
The selectmen voted
Yeah.
0-4-0.
They did.
I will make a motion to approve the request for transfer of WPC funds, Article 17, and I'll recommend that we vote 040 or 090.
So should we just abstain or vote?
Do we
or
feel
you
we
wanna
have
vote it
sufficient
down?
information to say no to it, or should we?
I don't think we have sufficient information.
So I would suggest, we do 009.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, because if you vote against it, you feel you have enough information to vote against it.
May
If
I have
only
a-
to
may I have a
abstain,
second
you
to that
don't know
motion?
anything.
Right.
May I have a second to that motion,
So
please?
it's abstain. So,
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All those abstained?
aye.
Aye.
So is that a 1 for yes?
No,
Oh,
009.
too fast for me. 009.
Okay. Okay, that leaves just the first three. Now, I have some information here from, let's see, do we have to, wait a minute, can I skip over it? Oh, we have the, let's do this in order so Kelly doesn't get after me. For the, supplies for printing our warrant from Rico for $94.91. It is primarily paper.
So the 94.91 is for ink toner.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes it is, toner. The big whoopie-doo copier we're going to be using here down the hall. They wanted to have another toner on hand, just in case, and this would be what we're talking about here. Do I have a motion to approve $94.91 to Rico? Motion's made, may I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A vote? That's that one, and the second one we have to go to the next, a different part of it. Okay, any liaison reports?
When you, so you vote on the toner, you're gonna vote on the paper?
Why don't we vote on the paper also?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't call that
No,
up?
you just did the toner, so
Oh,
next
my-
one would be
Oh,
WB
no,
Mason.
no, we have to call, the other one is under any other business, because it wasn't posted 48 hours in advance, that particular one.
Oh,
All right.
however
Okay.
you gotta do it.
Any liaison reports? Being none, any other business, which would be, now we're moving on here.
I make a motion that we approve the invoice from WB Mason for $102.88 for paper.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote?
And this paper is to be used for the town meeting warrant.
Yes. And this is some information we have that I gleaned at the last meeting, which is Monday, relevant to Article 5, which is the Beacon School at Minot Forest.
Before you do this, can I have a question? Can I ask her a question?
Certainly.
On the bills we just paid? So basically, we're doing our own warrants, so we're saving money, not sending them to the printer? Is that what?
That is
So we're
correct.
gonna copy them and put them together ourselves?
Yes.
And the savings is,
Well,
Does
what did
someone,
it cost us last year to the printer?
it cost, to do 400,
Yeah.
because that's what we're going to be doing for this particular town meeting, it would cost us upwards around 3,000.
That's what I thought, it's a big savings.
Indeed, it is.
yes.
Kelly gonna be able to handle
Well, this is the alternative, it's a big savings, but it costs us in labor for ourselves, because Kelly's gonna have to do it, I'm gonna be down helping her, and later on I'll ask if there's anyone else. Does anyone have a number 4 at the bottom that was scratched out? One of these, yeah, there's a numeral 4 at the bottom of the page.
Front page.
Yeah, the front page on the bottom.
Anyone have a 4? that they
Oh,
did?
excuse me, I apologize, I got it, that's my master, that's my master. Okay, what effectively they've done, on Monday, we went through a chart, and it's amazing how we're spending $90 million in an hour and a half.
Do you have an
But-
extra one of these, Bree? Thank you.
But they've ascertained in amount we may have to borrow,
Alan, you want one?
we have to borrow $90 million, we're actually fiscally, we're borrowing around 40. They ascertained at a 20-year level debt, 3.75, and these were done by John Foster within the past 24 hours, 48 hours. The total interest on the life of the loan would be 17 mil. And cost you, depending upon the value of your home, and you see that there's a couple, the 100,000, 200,000, $258,000 is the average or median home value for the town itself. And there's over 300, 600, 400,000. You can see the difference between a 20, 25-year, and 30-year level debt. That means you're every year, same payment, doesn't increase. And the amount of interest we would pay by extending it to 25 or 30 years. So the committee voted to recommend 20 years, and Derek has authorized the school committee to make the decision on which one they were going to choose. It was because Derek is the principal person in the town for signing all these things.
Wait, the school committee's gonna decide
Very good.
how long we're gonna take to pay this off?
Pardon?
The school committee's gonna decide how long we're gonna take to pay this off?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense to me
That
whatsoever.
seems-
Well,
that
what
seems a little
gives him
weird.
the right to decide how
Derek-
long we're
Derek has delegated that authority.
That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
The minor
I'm sorry.
building
That
committee
makes no
has
sense at all.
recommended 20 years.
That-
Who
that's-
recommended 20?
The minor building committee.
Actually, it went from the school building committee to the school committee to Derek. So the school committee hasn't voted yet. The school building committee.
No, they're voting tomorrow night, I believe.
Yeah.
They're on Thursday night, yes. The only reason they're doing that vote is Derek has authorized them to do so. That was his choice. To answer your question, Dominic, Derek is the one.
Okay, but you know, it's on to, I'm gonna speak my piece, okay? The treasurer or the finance committee has got nothing to say with one of the major financial decisions that we've made in the past few years. You're gonna leave it up to the school committee. Does that sound right to you guys? I'm sorry, it doesn't sound right to me.
I agree.
As the article was originally written, the school committee was to form the committee, the minor building committee, appoint a chairman, which they did, and they are the appointing authority. But you're correct, they don't have the authority to do so, but Derek has delegated to them, and it's his option to do so. Now, I'm sitting on one side of the room, the chairman of the school committee's sitting on the other side, and my comment to her was, you had best approve this at your peril.
What does that mean?
It means we actually have the final, because if we were to change our mind and say no in recommending the article, that carries away.
Townspeople should have the bottom line vote of what.
They will. They will, because they're approving the construction of the school. Town meeting is the only authority that can approve the borrowing. The voters do not. However, they approve whether or not we go forward and build one. That is the final. And that's when the voters get their say.
Makes no sense.
How much damage can they do? The numbers aren't that far out.
Well, the approval of any numbers has gone through the minor building committee.
No, I understand that.
And the school
You're talking
committee has
about-
no authority or knowledge sufficient to change any of that.
What if they come back and say we'll do it over 30 years? I mean,
It's still going to floor town meeting.
can we change that?
The floor can change it, the floor can do the alternative.
This is insane.
You can prepay it and not pay any interest. Give me a check for $3,500 now, and you can just borrow that much less. Keep it off my tax bill forever. That'd be nice. Literally, it's like $4,200 at the median.
I don't think that motion has a time frame.
Which motion is that?
The motion for the actual town meeting vote whether or not to allow the town to borrow the money. It just states they can borrow the money,
Correct.
you know, in different ways without a time frame.
Oh, no, there's no time frame.
No, but I think, it just says they can borrow it. How are they going to borrow it? Whether it's going to be over a 20-year period or a 30-year period,
But that's not part of the article.
not part of the article.
No.
So the town won't vote?
You're talking, but you're
I
talking
don't
a
wanna-
decision of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
the wording of the article is, there's no choice in it. It's how it's written in the Prop 2.5.
Because that's
Oh,
also,
so-
that's part of the
I
ballot.
don't wanna pay $14 million in extra interest. And I don't wanna leave this to the school committee. I don't think it's reasonable to leave it to the school committee. It's a financial decision.
Thank you.
Well, they're basically voting for 20 years. The selectman who's on that committee was very vehement about 20 years, not 25 or 30, because the savings was a large amount of money. If I had my choice, I would have done 15 or even 10, although most of the people in town would be screaming because the cost per year would be high enough that there would be a problem. So I'm going to make an assumption, which is a bad word, that the 20-year piece is probably the most palatable cost versus what the addition is. Because at the end of the day, it's up to the building committee and the school committee to try and get this passed. So if they pick a number that's really low with a high cost at the end,
But-
it's gonna- I know what you're saying, but it's not, it's how it works.
So is the town going to vote on this?
Town meeting votes to allow us to borrow.
I know, it's gonna vote on how long it's gonna take to pay it back.
No.
Who's going to
gonna
make that decision?
Right now, the school committee.
I'm sorry.
Well, so,
I'll-
first of all, if we're considering 10 or 15 years, why isn't that on here?
We have no motion,
Yeah, those right.
but that's not the motion.
But I haven't seen the motion that says.
No, I haven't seen the motion.
There's
I have
no
no
final
idea
vote.
what's in the motion.
All you have is what's in front of you right now. which is the-
Claire is correct. The motion is as written under Prop 2.5 guidelines, and that's what has to appear on our articles, our warrant.
Well, okay, Brady, but still, let's get back to
I
tax
agree with your
here.
confusion.
No, Brad, yeah, who's gonna say, are we gonna borrow for 20, we're gonna borrow for 25, we're gonna borrow for 50?
Or 15, or 10?
Who is gonna make that final decision? That's gonna affect every homeowner in the town of Wareham. Who's gonna make that decision?
Derek Sullivan.
That's not what we just said a second ago.
Derek Sullivan, but he has the option of delegating that responsibility or that
That's an
authority
outrageous
to
thing
do
to
so,
do.
and he's done that. Because that issue was brought up at the meeting Monday.
You can delegate it out.
Wow.
Wow. And he feels that's,
It's your procurement officer that has the right to do that.
Why did he do it? What's the reason?
You'll have to ask him, I can't answer.
You
As
didn't
a
say? You didn't say?
Because I would speculate it's because it is a school issue.
So what?
That's remember.
the only reason why I
These are
could
not
say,
finance
the only reason, you know, the
He
only reason
doesn't
why he
live
would,
here, you know.
the only reason why I would say he would delegate this is he's afraid of it. Why else would he be afraid? Why, what else would you get rid of a job that you have? Because you're afraid of the outcome of it.
No,
I'd like to see what the,
No, it's not the reason?
Bernie, can we get what the interest rate and the total interest rate?
That's what I'm trying to say,
for a repayment
he's
schedule of
protecting
10 and
himself
15
from
years?
fallout.
Certainly.
Makes sense to me for him, but
This whole
doesn't make
thing,
any sense
the
to me.
numbers
are different.
I mean, these are serious dollars.
3 3/4 to 4 1/4.
You know, I'm not looking
You
at
gotta
that.
pay the
It's all
principal.
I'm not looking at that.
It may hurt for a few years, but
I'm
it's
looking
gonna be a
at
whole lot better
who should
than
make that
paying it for all
decision.
these
Whether
years.
it's a
On the
penny
flip
difference
side,
each
though,
way.
Well,
still.
it's
You
the
have,
school committee's project, they should own
a
it.
group, let's say, or whatever it be. It's a saleability. What is more appealing or less?
Yes.
And that's
Concern
fine if
of
the
the
town
voter.
can debate it, but the notion that we're just gonna delegate it to the school committee because they think it's better to spend 17 as opposed to 12, I don't like that.
I remember discussing this issue with John and Derek, and they were both in agreement it's more economical for the town to borrow on a 20-year. They were just, we had talked about a 25 and a 30-year, and they said, no, not cost effective. As far as borrowing less than that, it's more of a concern, is it saleable to the homeowner?
How's this, if the town's not gonna vote on it, how's this even gonna come up?
As a procurement officer, I
So
can't
if
go
it's
into
not
that, I
gonna be
don't
voted on by
know.
the town, why is it a saleability issue?
When
It has to.
voting
To
time,
approve
because
the-
that information will be out there to determine, are you going to vote for a new school or not?
Well, why don't we just ask the town to vote on what they want after we have a discussion of it?
I think-
As opposed to the
I
school
think
committee.
this is not for the town meeting, this is for when they go to the poll, to vote on a new school or not. That's why there are figures here.
That's when actually the town, as an individual, every voting individual is making a decision. Do I let them build a new school and pay that?
Yes.
per year.
That's what this vote is coming to.
The town meeting is voting, only authorizing us to borrow.
Okay. So-
What we're gonna borrow to
So
build
at some
is-
point,
So then
this
this can still
information is gonna
fail.
be in front of the town.
Yes,
So
So
the
then
school
building the
committee's
school can
not
still-
going to decide what it is. They can recommend what they think, but they're not gonna decide it.
yes, to be that correct, yes, the voter will
Good.
decide.
Fine.
It goes to the polls.
So we can take a different position when that comes up.
Yes.
Mm,
We
No.
can voice our
No.
position, we
No.
can't take one, we don't, there's nothing enforceable for us.
this-
We can stand up and say, this is nuts. We wanna do it, we should do X. We can do that.
You
Of
won't
course you
have,
can.
you won't have a forum.
You won't have a
unless you-
forum
You
for
won't
that.
have a forum unless you do it at the town
The
meeting.
only forum we have is town meeting.
Correct.
You just said that this vote is to authorize borrowing however much it is, 40, 90, whatever the hell it is.
Town meeting vote.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they've gotta, at a separate time, they've gotta say, we're gonna build the school.
A
And at
ballot
that
vote.
time, this comes up.
No. There's not gonna be anything on the ballot that has a checkbox
nothing
for
that says
how
that.
many years.
Wow.
That's
So It's gonna
information.
be yes or no.
Because the
Fine.
town's already said that we already allowed them to borrow 40 million. Now we gotta vote whether we can wanna build the school. That's all that the
How are
general
people
public's gonna
gonna
vote on.
decide that if they don't know how much it's gonna cost to build the school?
That issue, I'm certain, will come up. The moderator, if she allows a discussion on the floor.
This is insane. I've never.
Help
heard
me,
anything
Claire,
like
because
this
I'm
in my life.
confused. Help me, Claire.
If you think you're confused, the warrant article that comes before town meeting is simply to say whether or not the voters want to give permission for the town to borrow the funding, the $90 million. I would hope, I would certainly hope, that somebody would give some sort of presentation explaining the options and why they went with what they went with. Generally, on a borrowing article such as this, bond counsel would write the motion. I have not seen anything. I do not know what the motion is going to be, but on an article like this, it's generally bond counsel, and in the past, it's always been John Foster, who has had some input and recommendations looking at over the length of the bond, what it's going to cost.
Okay.
So somebody must have discussed this somewhere, I would assume. I would hope that on town meeting floor, because the article on whether or not to build is already on the ballot. That was put on the ballot by the Board of Selectmen back in July?
Yes,
August.
What was it?
July, August.
August, all right, probably when I was away. The only person that can put the question on the ballot is the Board of Selectmen. Town meeting cannot. There are two ways of doing it, however. The selectmen could have, in the spring, put a question, would you like us to put this on the ballot? And people could have voted yes or no, but that did not happen. So the selectmen have actually, you can do it either way. The selectmen have put, so this is on the ballot as to whether or not you want to build a school. At town meeting, all we're doing is authorizing the money. If it fails in November on the vote, there'll be no borrowing.
Right.
It
So-
just, the only people who can authorize expenditure of funds is town meeting. So it has to go before town meeting.
So you anticipate somebody's gonna raise
I would
how we're gonna
certainly-
repay
I
this.
would certainly hope so.
So all I'm asking is whoever put these numbers together, at least put in a 10 and 15-year repayment and run the numbers out. So that at least the town people will have an idea
More options are better than,
of how much they're gonna spend a year, but how much they're really gonna spend at the end of the day. You just have to do some simple math.
Bernie, you have a meeting, school committee meets tomorrow, vote on this? So-
I will make sure
someone
that
from the finance committee should go.
yes, we've been invited
Patrick's gonna go, I know Patrick's not gonna go.
when is it, Bertie?
tomorrow
Tomorrow?
night. It's a regular,
It's a regular
meeting.
school committee meeting.
Over
Yeah.
there, at the school?
Yes.
7
No, it's
o'clock?
here, in the
It's a multi-service center.
multi-service center, in the meeting room. They meet at the selectmen's meeting room now.
They move.
7 o'clock tomorrow?
Yes. Yeah. I will make sure that there is information of that nature. And if it's not presented, I will make sure
They
that
just have
I,
to do what they've done
make
here
that
for 10
presentation.
and 15
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Because the numbers are gonna be dramatically different.
as a matter of fact, if I can get John Foster to, let's say, add in a couple lines up here in top, because I intended to include this in our book. I will include that information in our book
And
also.
we might want to do some math to show if you took 15 years, what the total payments per person would be versus 20 years, or 25.
You want anything else besides 15 year? You know?
I said 10 and 15.
I do 10 and 15. I do 10 years.
But do what Stuart,
And just
but do
complete
what
this whole
Stuart
thing
said,
across.
do the, Bernie, do what you said, as far as showing people what each person's gonna pay total.
Right.
In other words, $100 return, 200, but you know what I mean? Show, so that they can say, geez, we're gonna save that much. People gotta realize and see what's actually gonna hit them in the pocketbook.
Well, look, I understand some people can only afford so much, but a lot of people may say, you know, at the end of the day,
I'd
let's
rather
do it
spend
in
a little
15
more
years
today than a little less
because it's
later.
going to cost me X amount less.
Exactly.
Well, it says this column, this last column, or any one of those columns, which tells you in the, let's say if it's 100,000, if you have value of 100,000, if we borrow it 20 years, it's going to cost you $82 a year. If you have a home at
Right, I see
400,000,
that,
it's
right.
$328. What I will ask that we get is a 15 and 10-year line items and all that match across.
Right, all I'm saying is when we put our presentation, or whatever we put in this booklet we have, we ought to give some examples of each one. You know, if your house is worth $258,000, well, you'll
No,
be
that-
paying more at 15 years per year.
Mhm.
This is what your total will be versus 20 years or 25 years.
That way there they can actually see the actual savings
Yeah.
by doing it for each year.
Mhm.
It's harder to see, it
This just
doesn't
looks
really
like you'll
show,
pay more, but
Yeah.
you're not paying more.
Well,
you're
it
paying less in
also,
the long run.
it's also helpful to know why you're choosing the 20-year versus the 15-year.
Yeah, I agree. It may be that people won't tolerate it otherwise, but you just gotta give them the information.
The more information you can give, the
You
easier
don't
it
wanna
is
do
for
it
people to
50.
Do 20
understand and
times,
what questions.
211.56.
You gotta show them. I
4,000.
don't want people thinking that, you know, well, if we do it in 20 years, it's gonna cost more than if we
How
do
much
it in
you wanna
30
know?
years.
211.56.
It's true.
Yeah, for 20 years.
It's gonna cost more
So
per
that
year.
would be 20 years, 20 times 12.
I hear you.
Plus years.
About 42.
Problem is you're gonna have to show
And
people
now do it times
how much it's
188.
gonna cost per year.
Well, I understand that, but you should also show them what it's gonna
Okay.
cost
Well,
overall.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying,
How about
because today
42,
in town,
right,
one
231, yeah?
of the employees
188,
couldn't quite figure it out. The house was like $258,000, so I said,
$47.08.
258 times 80 cents, .80.
Not for nothing, but
That's
a lot
what
of
you
people
bill us
now,
now.
they ain't gonna make it to the end of the payments.
Instead of 190.
Average age of one
You're
thirty.
gonna have to give them.
That's why you gotta put the information out.
Exactly what it is. If you leave them the base information, they have to figure it out. It's not gonna work.
Really, not just another item, I checked for 37.
I agree, Stuart, we'll get that.
It's not a big deal with it anymore.
I understand.
Get radical.
Get down to 15 years.
Take a power
And
less.
that's what they,
It says it's $90.3 million, but there's still
Okay.
$59 million.
Just between 20 and 25, it's $500 a year, so it's $2,500 savings per household for 5 years. Just doing the numbers for the 20, 25 years.
It's only $500.
Bernie, if you go there tomorrow, can you get down to
About 5 years,
finalize
$500 a year.
finalize what that
500 a year, times 5 years is 2,500.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you with Dominic.
I'm sorry.
The newspaper has given out over the last 3 weeks figures, and it's conflicting, and we haven't even get, I haven't even get it. They put out costing $90.3 million to build a school. Now, there may be some more things that come in there that we don't know about. We don't know what's actually covered out of the $90 million that MSBA is gonna pay, because they don't cover everything. The confusing part of all this is the newspaper's printed at least twice now in the last week and a half that MSBA is gonna contribute $59 million to the project, and that the town's gonna pay $39 million. If you add that up, round numbers, that's $98 million. Where's the $8 million coming from? It doesn't jive.
We brought that up before.
Yeah, they,
It's a problem because, you know, the average person is gonna, you're gonna confuse the living hell of the average person looking at that saying, you can't even come up with a number that jives with one number to the other. $8 million is a huge spread. Someone needs to answer the question in public, so the newspapers
I agree.
stop putting the wrong information.
And the complexion of the committee has changed somewhat, so I'm not sure what is going to be produced now, but I can assure you I'm going to make sure that they get all the information they're supposed to. If they do it the way I'm thinking they're going to do it, no, it's not going to happen.
Well, we always say it's all false news, I guess.
No.
But either way, that's an important piece, it's still sitting there.
But we have, let's see, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What I would like Thursday is the capital planning committee meeting, but we won't have the information, but on the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I hope to be here helping Kelly, and I would appreciate if anyone else let me know if they can volunteer. Essentially, she'll set the copier up, we'll sit there, let it go, and if something happens, we'll pick up the phone and say, Kelly, it doesn't work anymore, so she'll have to come up and do it. But we need kind of a babysitter to make sure it goes through properly. And I would like, we're going to try and finish off a final copy this weekend of what it's going to look like, so we can run it through the copier starting on Tuesday. But we'll have those 3 days and try to get it done for us. We're required to have our information in the hands available 1 week before, and this will allow us to accomplish it.
I should be able to help.
I'd like to be out of town.
That's gonna make it tough.
What time are you
I'm
gonna,
glad you have the good intentions.
I had no idea what it was.
what time are you gonna be here? Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
I'm hoping to be around between 9 and 10 o'clock to start, sometime around then. I'll forego going to gym. But let me know so we don't have, a lot of people standing around, and so we'll try to apportion out our manpower.
When you go
Well,
put
yeah,
together,
that's-
when you actually go get the staple together, or does the machine do that?
The machine hopefully can do all the
Collates
stuff.
and everything, huh?
And the intent of buying that was to do a lot of the reports that a lot of the people have, and we have to do a nice polished report like they do the,
If I give you a time that I can be here, I will be here.
thank you.
But let me find out what time you can be here.
Your availability? The
Yes.
grandchildren or something have a factor in,
No, I'm going to the doctors all the time.
Oh.
Jesus, I
Are you
live
gonna
at
send
them.
me the inserts?
Yes.
You said Tuesday is the 9th, We're talking about the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th?
9, 10, and 11.
And I'll email you my availability.
Thank you.
I can be here on 9, 10, and 11, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can be here any day, anytime. You've got me for a free week.
Okey doke.
So you want to call me and tell me what time?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you see who you have,
Mhm.
and then you can give me a call. It only takes me 10 minutes to get there.
No problem. Glad to. Thank you very much.
You have my phone number.
Anything else that anybody has to want to come up? Yes, Claire?
Just I met with Steve today at WCTV,
Yes.
so just so that you know, we are planning for an overflow crowd. We have booked the cafeteria, he will have a camera in the cafeteria. I'm looking at putting 2 people in there. So people will be able to come up to the camera and speak into a microphone. We'll be able to hear their thoughts from there as well, and let's just hope it works out.
Yeah,
So
I assume 1 or 2 big screens also in the cafeteria?
There'll be a screen if you're on the stage to the right-hand side, I believe. So the only issue that we bumped into was the number of microphones were a little short. So you all may not have an individual microphone, you may have to share one or two of them. We need to put down in the cafeteria, so we were short by two
We always share.
microphones.
We always share those.
So,
That's any good.
so we're keeping our fingers crossed that it all works out.
We never
Really
had
believe
one
you're gonna be a vocal
exactly.
crowd, huh?
It's hard to judge, it's really hard to judge.
The school's gonna be the key, huh?
Yeah, I know we had talked about doing electronic voting for this meeting, but without being able to judge exactly how many handhelds we would need, I didn't want to end up having 80% of the people having a handheld and the other 20 not, and then having them upset because they weren't able to vote electronically. So we decided that this would not be a good meeting to try that, but hopefully in the spring, Alan, Matt, Marianne, and I will be attending some town meetings where they do have electronic voting to try to see what might work for us. And we'd like to give it a test run in the spring. So if you have any thoughts or ideas to make this meeting go smoother, I certainly appreciate it.
Okay, before we finish, I had skipped over the approval of meeting minutes for September 26th. Could I have a motion to accept, please?
Move we accept the minutes from 26th?
Yes, September 26th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Can't vote, was it?
I wasn't here.
Pat, Glenn, and Dominic are all abstentions.
Okay. All abstaining.
I wasn't here.
Yep, okay, we have 3 abstentions.
So that's good.
Okay, it's a vote. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adjourn?
No, next meeting date,
Town meeting.
Town meeting,
town meeting.
22nd,
yes.
6 o'clock?
You have it booked for the 22nd, right?
We're gonna set up.
We're gonna meet early, we're gonna meet beforehand, 30.
Yes, we will. So we'll be meeting at 6:30.
6:30. Here it goes.
If there's anything else that comes up that may require more time, discussion, I'll let you know. The maximum I put out would be an hour before.
Let's get the book early too, okay?
Mhm.
Have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion made to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote.
Very good. Good night, Wareham.
Don't
We're gonna
forget
go
to
up during
follow.
lunchtime